You want to play with fire, I'll bring you fire, but I will burn you.
The impression to me is you are a little angry.
Absolutely not.
The story of one of football's biggest characters starts in Malmo, Sweden. More specifically, the suburb of Rosengård. His parents were both immigrants and worked as cleaners and caretakers to try to make ends meet. Times were difficult for a young Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He received limited affection from his stern father and had to endure plenty of tough love. His father, Shafik, was instilling important life lessons to make him strong and equipped for the world ahead of him. Ibra dedicates a lot of his success to his father, who through his sacrifice was able to provide as much as he could. And Ibra had that lens firsthand. Sometimes missing rent to help pay for his son's football, it's no surprise that Zlatan would turn into the figure he became in both his footballing career and life outlook. Much later down the line, we saw on social media, Dare to Zlatan. It was a mentality. At a young age, Zlatan was a frustrated child. He looked around at other boys who had the resources and easier opportunities. He was angry at his economic situation, as well as facing some discrimination for being a foreigner in Sweden.
They didn't make me feel welcome. I was different. I was face different. I was not the blonde guy.
This chip on the shoulder, it motivated Zlatan to do more, to work harder, to convince himself that he was the best, or even simply that he more than belonged. It wasn't for show, it never has been. Zlatan always had the belief that Zlatan could be number one in anything and everything he dedicated his time to. His desire was to make it as a footballer, to become a professional, to leave a legacy. And it would all begin when he joined Malmo at just 15 years old. After a couple years, he properly would make his debut, and he was fueled by anger, maybe even rage. He admitted that animosity was a huge motivation for him to win, for him to perform. At 17, Ibrahimovic was attracting scouts from across the globe. He was different, he was unique, 6'5", with plenty of skill, a lot of ambition, and one of the most notable that showed interest being Arsene Wenger. Unfortunately for Arsenal, Zlatan was convinced that staying at Malmo would further his development. That, however, ended up being too boring of a story for Ibrahimovic to tell. So instead, he cites Zlatan doesn't do auditions. Another scout at the time did have an impact on what his later decision would be when Ibra made the decision to move abroad. Ajax agreed to a deal to bring the unpredictable striker to Amsterdam in 2001 for 8.7 million euros. It was a new experiment, and it took some time to flourish. In his first season, he didn't get much playing time. But when Koeman was inserted as the head coach the following year, Zlatan was slotted into the forward line. He didn't just show up, he showed out. He would score 21 goals for club that season as Ajax lifted the Eredivisie title. A steady return would follow. By the time Ibrahimovic was on the move again, he had scored 48 goals in 110 appearances for the Dutch club. Next up, Italy was on the agenda, and he would aim to make his mark with Juventus. That said, for all his skill, Ibra always brought a certain amount of baggage with him. He had quite the disagreement with Van der Vaart, who on international duty was tackled heavily by Zlatan despite them being teammates at a club level. If you accuse me again, I'll break both your legs, and that time it will be on purpose. Not only is there a clash of personality, but it hits a little bit different with Zlatan having history in martial arts. It adds some credibility. Add in the framework of him being 6'5", having a presence and a polarizing personality to match. That said, a running trend throughout the career of Zlatan, his arrogance and maybe even his stubbornness would lead to goals and trophies. In his first 2 years in the Serie A, he won the league twice. Ibrahimovic's obsession with being number one, was just getting started. It was heating up. When Juve was relegated for cheating, he quickly joined Inter Milan and continued winning titles like they were going out of style. And undoubtedly, Zlatan was regarded as one of the top strikers in all of European football. Big performances and big personality. And in 2009, he made the big money move to Barcelona as a result of his previous success for $59 million. At Barcelona, his ego would clash with another huge figure in the sport, Pep Guardiola. Pep was assembling one of the greatest sides in European football, and many saw the addition of Zlatan as a masterstroke. A tall, quick, and skillful forward who could seemingly do it all. The vision, the patience. But while at Barcelona, Zlatan endured many disagreements with management. He quickly realized this wouldn't be the club for him, and he publicly voiced his frustrations of having a Ferrari up front and treating it like a Fiat. Ibra does love an example when it comes down to Ferraris and Fiat. After a series of games being benched, Ibra was frustrated with the situation and decided to make some noise. He had been informed no supercars were allowed at training when he first arrived. But Zlatan, being Zlatan, pulled up his Ferrari right outside of Guardiola's office. The chess match was in full effect.
You want to play with fire, I will bring you fire, but I will burn you. But obviously, he's the coach, because what punish most the player if he doesn't play, because obviously you want to play.
Pep completely avoided him until Ibrahimovic would leave the club. And it only made sense that Ibra returns to Italy, where he knew the league and was confident with making an impact once more. Joining an impressive AC Milan side that went on to win the Scudetto with Zlatan at the helm. He was a serial winner domestically. Nearly every season of his career was part of a title-winning team. And in some ways, I'm not sure that football fans worldwide properly appreciate how unique and special Zlatan Ibrahimovic actually is. He shares an era with the likes of Messi and Ronaldo. That was the storyline, the narrative. Two of the greatest football players we'll ever see touch the pitch. Messi is Messi, Ronaldo is Ronaldo, but Ibra is Ibra. We're talking about a generational talent. I'm not sure I'll see anyone that's able to remake or replicate the types of goals with the matching personality, that post-game interviews.
So there's only one Zlatan.
That said, his goals were consistent, his domestic results on point, but he didn't have a Champions League. The Champions League is a tournament that has renowned respect as the elite competition in football. The winner of the Champions League typically has the winner of the Ballon d'Or accompanying it. While never explicitly expressing his desire for the award, his whole life was striving to be the best. And having a Ballon d'Or was signified with that achievement. And to win the Champions League would be his best chance at also having that individual accolade. At the top of his game, Zlatan made a move. In 2012, on the back of a season amassing 33 goals, Ibrahimovic completed a lucrative and controversial transfer to PSG. For someone striving to be the world's #1, a move to a less competitive league seemed a little bit odd. But PSG were building a super team under an elite coach of Carlo Ancelotti, large budgets, new transfers, key players. Ibrahimovic was joined by the likes of Thiago Silva, Marco Verratti, Lavezzi, in an attempt to legitimize the club as an elite football institution by winning the big one, the Champions League. And it could be said, Zlatan's determination, maybe even desperation to win European silverware, it clouded his judgment. PSG were a club with huge investment, yes, but had never won the tournament before. They didn't have that rich history. PSG, simply put, would dominate domestic football with or without the likes of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Their spending dwarfed the other clubs in the league. And of course, Zlatan collected a plethora of goals and moments in his time in France, but never did reach the promised land of UCL glory. And after 4 seasons, he decided it was time for a change. Manchester United convinced him to join the Premier League, and while he was 35 years old at the time, it didn't bother him one bit. He slotted in perfectly for the club, scoring an impressive 17 goals, and it gave you a glimpse of what prime Ibrahimovic could have achieved in the Prem. United, at the time, a bit of a club of constant transition, and they would only have Ibra for a couple seasons as he looked at moving on across the Pacific. Ibra would improve his commercial presence by joining MLS, a footballing figure who was as big as they come, and a debut, as you would expect a Zlatan debut to go.
Kamara throwing his body in, it's going to fall for Ibrahimovic! Oh, come on!
MLS was Ibrahimovic's playground for 3 seasons, and being in Los Angeles allowed him moments with the stars. But he realized that maybe his move to America had come a little too early. He still had something to offer to the elite leagues of Europe. He even teased that desire in an interview speaking about Ferraris and Fiats.
What I was trying to say, I was a Ferrari in MLS. That is what, not my teammates. because my teammates is with me.
It was here when a shocking opportunity arose, a sensational return to AC Milan. Then 38-year-old Ibrahimovic was rolling back the years in Serie A once more. And he did what Zlatan does best: score goals and win league titles. And it reminded and gave that stamp of approval that Ibrahimovic's career was never left to chance. His impact, monumental. It was here, after 3 seasons back with Milan, that Ibrahimovic would retire from football. An announcement I wished would never happen. There was something about Ibra that felt immortal. From his play style to the size, to the ruthlessness, the no mercy attitude he had as a person and as a competitor. But Ibra wanted to spend time with his kids. And if he kept playing amongst some of his injuries and ankle issues, that option might have been rendered impossible in terms of being able to play alongside them. After a career of perceived arrogance and selfishness, he decided to end the thing he obsessed with, to do what was right for his family. Perhaps a bit of a misunderstood individual when it comes to sport. Zlatan had his beliefs and he had his values, and he would change them for no one. He was unapologetic. At times, they hindered him, but after a career of scoring 570 goals and collecting dozens of trophies, you can argue that his stubbornness and anger helped drive his perseverance, which led to the developing characteristics that made him such a force to be reckoned with. He didn't retire from football. He relieved football of his duty to him.